So hey y'all, you probably could hear my thing coming through my headphones. Sorry. Hello everyone, welcome to Social Science Sunday. And now as soon as I do that, I need to cough. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to cough in your face first thing in the morning. Hello everyone, and actually I won't need this today because we're going to be doing some reading. I hope you guys like the setup. I am working on rearranging things, organizing things for 2022. So new look, new setup. I'm disappearing into the background now. I've got a new mic. So I want to thank a good friend, supporter of the channel, Matthew, who has been a long time mate of mine. Gosh, going back years now. And yeah, he recommended the Elgato, and I hope y'all like it. I think it sounds gorgeous myself. I think it sounds beautiful, but I'm biased. So welcome to Social Science Sunday. I am Kristi, and we're going to geek out today. I'm going to try something new for 2022, more of a focus on social science and social science issues. And last time we looked at standards of evidence while critiquing James Lindsay. So I'm not going to lose all my politics, but I do think that it is helpful for people who, have an interest in social science but don't have the time or resources to devote to going to do a university course or, to track down these kinds of resources. I'm just going to do a real quick delivery of content. So this is, I'm getting this out. Let me show you. Let me show you the new thingy with camera. Is that the one? No, with camera. There we go. Yay! All right. Hey, Bruce. Good to see you. Also, yeah, hi, Bruce. Can I call you Brucey? Po Mama said, good morning. Professor Reet. Good morning, Sibwolf. Good to see you. Sempris, first in the chat. And good to see you too, DN Fan 292. I always appreciate people who show up for the live show. You're organizing your day around this podcast or / YouTube thing, and it touches me. So thank you for your time and attention. Yes, so I'm just going to do a straight up delivery of content. For those of you who like my reading voice, settle in. You're going to get a lot of it today. We're going to look at this article from Raymond Mack entitled How Scientific is Social Science. It's only it's actually 8 pages because I checked already. The references take up an entire page. And just a little bit about this journal. So this particular article was published in ETC, a review of General Semantics. When I looked into what the Institute, because it's published by the Institute of General Semantics, and what I learned is that they are a not-for-profit corporation established in 1938 by Alfred Korbisky. I mean, I'm Polish, but even that, I'm struggling with that name. To support research and publication on the topic of general semantics. And so if you go and look at their institute, they say that general semantics is the renowned practical discipline that applies modern scientific thinking and language strategies to solve problems in everyday life. So as far as I can see, it's not a dodgy, there are some pretty dodgy independent research orgs out there, but from what I've looked at, I don't see that there's this is not, it is in JSTOR too, so this isn't like some think tank piece from the Heritage Foundation or whatever. But unfortunately, just the size of the screen, I can't quite get everything on, so we're gonna just move. I've already set this up. I can call you whatever you like, Brucey. Okay, I'll call you my Brucey. It's just, I guess, there's the way that I see British people, if making affectionate shortenings of words, like sandwich becomes sarnie, or lipstick becomes lippy, berry becomes baza, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Oh, poor Mama said, I'm glad that you enjoy having this as your Sunday morning. All right, let me just have a sip more of my coffee, which I'm going to mute myself for, because I have a thing about math voices. So I mute myself, and then we're going to get started. Alrighty, diety. Oh, I'm going to use I have a cat. Sorry, camera one. I have my cat coaster, so I'm going to put my coffee in my cat coaster. I've got 2 here, actually. I've got that one, I've got this one. So, aren't they cute? I love them. All right. How Scientific is Social Science? I'm going to get comfy. By Raymond W. Mack. How scientific is social science? It seems to me that the way to address this question is to determine what we mean by science and by social science, and then to see to what degree each of the several so-called social sciences meet the criteria of our definition. In other words, to what degree the field is scientific. What is the unifying factor which leads us to classify certain bodies of knowledge as sciences? In the way in which the bodies of knowledge was obtained, the unity of the sciences lie in their method. Knowledge obtained by this method is referred to as scientific. Men and women and non-binary people who utilize the method to add to a body of knowledge we call scientists. A body of knowledge compiled by the method is designated a science. The scientific method itself consists of seeking knowledge on the basis of 3 assumptions. The scientist does not say that no data gathered outside this framework can be true or useful. He does claim that the only knowledge gained in this manner is scientific. To proceed scientifically, he assumes that. Okay, so let's just take a little pause here. This is very much like coming out of the position of Popper. If you struggled with me to do the philosophy of social science text that's so dense, and I took so much work, then you'll know that what Mack is coming here from an empiricist, right, position that we're talking about data. We're also interested in things, like a certain type of knowledge, but scientific knowledge is not the only type of knowledge. If you understand the philosophy of science, you'll understand knowledge can be produced in many ways. Science is one way of producing knowledge according to a certain set of standards. So when we are investigating the world for whatever reason, sorry, it's my phone. I don't know why that's beeping. We're investigating the world. There's more than one way to establish, let's say, things that are useful to know in life or things that are true about humanity, but those decisions were not arrived at by scientific criteria. Okay, so I think it is helpful to think about facts, things that are true and things that are useful as being individual categories of information. So to proceed scientifically, he, she, they assume. I'm just going to, I'm going to fix this for the author. That, one, the most reliable method of gaining knowledge is through the human senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. When a person just has the feeling deep down inside that, let's say, Cleveland will win the World Series in 1959, he does not have scientific knowledge. I'm wondering also, this said it was published. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt for a second here. It said it was published in 2004. It just kind of feels a little bit older than that in terms of how it's written. If you get what I said, like there's a little bit of our archaic things going on here. Anyway, like winning the World Series in 1959. I think this article might be much older, but more recently published. So FYI, I will do commentary about this if I find, for instance, the language a little bit sexist, and fix it for a modern audience. When Aristotle assumed that a horse had a certain number of teeth because that seemed a reasonable number of teeth for a horse to have, he did not add to scientific knowledge. Had he looked inside the mouths of some horses to find out how many teeth they were in there, or reach inside to touch and count them, he would have a scientific datum straight from the horse's mouth. That's academic humor for you. All right. It is true that scientists often use instruments in their data gathering, but these are nothing more than devices to aid them in their sense perceptions. The most refined of gauges must be read by a human eye if it is to contribute to the store of human knowledge. The thermometer does not feel temperature. The ruler does not measure distance. The stethoscope does not hear a heartbeat. Each is an auxiliary to the human senses, but it is the eye and the ear of the person using them which makes their sensitive indications a scientific observation. All right, let's take a pause here because I don't want to just keep reading and reading without doing some commentary and also to get some input from you all. First, I'm seeing that I'm peaking a little bit. Is my volume okay? I should probably check that earlier. People just give me a little, yeah, you're a bit loud, or a little bit okay. And then let's kind of come back a little bit because if you've been on my channel before and you've listened to me talk about epistemology, how do we know, empiricism, we also talked about rationalists versus empiricism, knowledge that is derived from, let's say, the logic of mathematics, 2 + 2 = 4, or other types of things that come from a purely rational deduction rather than needing to be located in the material world. All right, this shouldn't sound too foreign to you. Right. And the other thing, too, that empiricists obviously are renowned for is the idea of observation. And this is what kind of brings us into the social sciences in terms of what constitutes observation. And in the natural sciences, it's usually direct physical observation because the things that you're looking for are manifest physically. When we come to the social sciences, a lot of things that we want to observe can't be directly observed. When we want to understand democracy, volume is fine, perfect, thank you, I appreciate the validation. When we want to understand democracy or gender equality, we can't use a microscope, we can't use a telescope, we can't use a thermometer. We have to ask people, and because people lie or people want to give answers that make them look socially acceptable or for whatever reasons, they can't always, you can't just ask people direct questions. We need to ask around those, what we call latent variables or latent constructs that make up something like trust in democratic institutions, for instance. However, regardless of the fact that the thing is hard to observe, we still use the scientific approach in order to conform with scientific norms as to what constitutes evidence and how it is obtained. Just right for a Sunday morning. Hey, and Nil Magnifico, good to see you. Andrew, thank you for stopping by. A little soft? Okay, I can also just pop it up a bit. Hold on a second. Yeah, I think, I kind of twitched. I took it down a twitch, so maybe I can take it back up a twitch. I just don't want to peak. I think that's just when I laugh. So I turned it up a little bit, Bruce. I hope that is better for you now. Continuing on. 2. So that was the first point. Everything has to be read and interpreted by a human being. 2. The most reliable method of organizing knowledge is through the use of human logic. Now, here's where I want to bring up King Crocoduck, because he wanted to make the argument that science can't be a social construct because it is located in like natural processes. The eye see, the brain interprets, so forth, and so on. However, merely gathering facts is not science. Gathering observations is not science. That is observation. It is when you make connections by using, causality and talking to other people, as we'll see. This is when we start to get the idea of a construction, not of observations, but of understanding of how those observations are situated in the wider world. I'm getting ahead of myself. I will. Adam Savage really recently did a vid that he observed every measurement is a compromise. Absolutely. Absolutely. I will tell you, because there's nothing that gets you a perfect measurement in every way you want. So you're always trading off one thing for another. All right. Even when it comes to, let's say, the natural sciences and scientific exploration, you can't put every instrument you'd like. There's not one instrument that's going to get everything you need to know about space. So you have to figure out, like, okay, what do you value more than others? What's more important for your measurements? When it comes to surveys, ideally, when I look at psychology as a social scientist, they get to ask, like the personal attributes questionnaire is 24 questions to measure 3 concepts. 24 questions to measure 3 concepts. That's like 8 questions per concept. On a social science survey, I am lucky if I can get 5 on the same concept. Most times, you're limited to 3 questions to measure one concept. That's, 3 to 5 is like, 5 is a luxury. 8? I mean, politics surveys would never end if I could get as many questions in. So yes, it's all about trade-offs. It's all about compromising and prioritizing things and making like I said, trade-offs. All right. So the most reliable method of organizing knowledge is through the use of human logic. There is a widespread belief that scientists are persons who let the facts speak for themselves. Facts never speak for themselves, if by this it is meant that a datum has meaning without interpretation. This is why science is a social construct, because it happens between people interpreting their observations. That was me. That was not in the article. Facts have no meaning unless they are presented as statements of relationship to other facts. Again, this is a really good counter-argument to King Crocoduck, this idea that our brains just naturally do science. Merely generating observations or information is not science. Science is the connection of pieces of information and interpreting them. During our lives, each of us has acquired a considerable store of knowledge which he or she or they is accustomed to bringing to bear upon each new fact that he, she, they acquires. It is easy, therefore, to be unaware on many occasions that our human brains are cataloging the newly presented information with reference to other information which we already possess. Another pause. This is pretty much the point that Kant drew upon. We can't know everything about the world. We only know our experience, right? And then those experiences are linked. I don't know if Kant said this part of it. But our brains, well, and I guess in some ways it does link onto it. Right? Our brains are predisposed to interpret certain types of information in specific ways that represent the nature of how our brains are organized, not the nature of reality. For instance, we can't see infrared on the infrared spectrum with our human eye. We have to use technology for that, right? Our brains will automatically determine what color spectrum we can perceive. That is not a pure reflection of reality. That is a function of the way that our brain can only handle certain amounts of information, right? So the role that our brains play in predetermining how information will be received, and then maybe also unconsciously or organized, is we have to be aware of that process in order to not be biased by it. By the way, yes, I'm going to just check in. What are people saying? The really good. Oh, the article. Thank you, Bruce, for. So social science is a systemic method of studying networks of causality. I would say that there is a good case to be made that, yeah, a lot of, well, at least in terms of social sciences, descriptive. So let me finish a thought before starting another one. I think it is fair to characterize social science as the investigation of causal relationships. Absolutely. I think the natural sciences, although there are causal relationships because it's still an exploration thing, descriptive statistics are still important as well, establishing what is there and how it is there. I would say primarily inferential relationships is the role of social science. Although, we can do work too on uncovering more things, but explaining why people do things the way they do is, I think, our focus. All right, I'm never going to get done with this if I don't keep reading. So, because I'm already 20 minutes in and I'm only on page 2. It is easy, therefore, to be unaware that on many occasions that our human brains are cataloging the newly presented information with reference to other information we already possess. If, for example, a friend informs us that the temperature outside today is 74 degrees, we are inclined to think of this fact as meaningful all by itself. Actually, it would take pages to list all of the facts to which we relate this one. First, obviously, each word in his sentence has a meaning to us because we were socialized in a culture where English is the standard language. Then, too, we are familiar with a Fahrenheit scale for measuring temperatures and are aware that it is customary in ordinary conversation to refer to this scale rather than to a centigrade one. We know that water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit and that it freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that normal room temperature in our society is about 68 degrees. Our reaction is that it is unseasonably warm today, or unseasonably cool, or about what one would have expected, indicates a knowledge of the time of year, the geographical location, and some information about temperature in this area at this season in previous years. This simple illustration points to what we mean when we refer to science as a body of knowledge. It is a body because it consists of facts which have been organized in relation to one another by human reason. And this is actually probably the best summary sentence as to why King Crocoduck is wrong that science isn't a social construct. It is both something that happens in human brains, but it is also something that happens between people necessarily. And it is only by organizing these datum or facts in relation to one another by human reason that makes it knowledge. 3. The most reliable method of checking knowledge involves the independent conclusion of other competent observers. The reason we sometimes have to wait so long to gain access to the startling medical discoveries announced in the Reader's Digest or some other well-known medical journal, Reader's Digest, is that a relationship between the facts seems apparent in the experience of one competent observer, but it has not been validated by others, and hence is not yet accepted by scientists as a part of a body of scientific knowledge. Again, boom, shakalaka, King Crocoduck, this is science being a social construct, right? It is not unknown in human experience for one observer to see small winged beings descending from the clouds, to hear them speak to him, and even to touch him. But because other competent observers cannot see or hear or touch them, their existence cannot be accepted as a scientific datum. In summary, then, when an observer gains knowledge through one or more of his, her, their senses, and he, she, they uses his, her, their human reason to interpret these observations. I'm just going to edit the text to make it easier. And other persons sufficiently well trained in this study, and other persons sufficiently well trained in the area being studied to see or hear or touch or smell or taste the same things as the first scientist, and using their human logic, organize the knowledge they have gained in the same way as the first observer, i.e., reach the same conclusions, we have a scientific fact. Not quite, but we're getting there. Like, I understand why he's summarizing it in this way. But again, this is, science is a process. It's not a natural function. Science is a process of knowledge construction. Hey, Dr. Yoshi, how you doing? Thank you for stopping by. So we're reading the article, How Scientific is Social Science. That's the morning's over coffee thing that we're doing. Having answered the question, what is science, at least to the satisfaction of the writer, we are faced with the question, can there be such a thing then as social science? By social sciences, we mean those bodies of knowledge compiled through the use of scientific method which deal with the forms and content of human interaction. To be social is to interact, to participate in group life. It is true that textbooks in the social sciences sometimes detail the social interactions of living beings other than humans, such as ants or apes, but this is usually for the purposes of illustrating, drawing analogy, or in some way attempting to understand better the social behavior of human beings. Oh, what is that? Like I tried to like the that noise when I did my S. Oh, hey, Kitty. Good to see you. All human beings are social. People have to interact with people in order to survive. Since all human beings live in a society, which is to say that every person is a member of some human group, it is just as reasonable to speak of a social environment as to talk, as people more often do, of their physical environment. People, after all, are much more profoundly influenced by their social surroundings than by their physical ones. The 3-year-old of a steel mill laborer in Pittsburgh who is taken from his home and reared by foster parents in a steel mill laborer's family in Birmingham, England, will not only talk and act and think differently than he would have had he remained in Pittsburgh. He will, talk and act differently than he would have had he remained in Pittsburgh. He will even think differently. The change in his physical environment will have been minimal. The alterations in his behavior will be traceable to the difference between the two social environments. As the physicist, the chemist, the astronomer, the biologist study the universe in which we live and the elements of which it is composed in an attempt to understand our physical environment and to predict what will happen in a given set of circumstances, so do social scientists study the social environment in which we live in an attempt to understand human society and how to predict how people will interact in a given set of circumstances. Can there be such a thing as social science? There are those who answer, no, with an exclamation point. I have here in my hand, as it seems fashionable to say, a statement by Raymond W, whose views on the matter will probably not surprise those of you acquainted with his views on other topics. In his column in Newsweek, Mr. W says, and then we're just going to go on with it. We're not going to read this guy. We're just going to skip down. Because I have things to do today, and you have things to do today, and we want to get to the end of this article. My answer to the question, can there be social science, is why not? We can observe human beings. We can organize the data in which we observe our data which we observe. We can have them checked by other competent observers. Why not social sciences? Other than to say, there is no reason why not, there are only 2 answers to the question as far as I know. One is a matter of one's personal belief system, which can be answered pragmatically to my satisfaction, but not, I hasten to admit, to everyone's. The second answer to the question reveals not a different belief system, but simply ignorance. All right. Remove Kitty. It's a bot. Okay. All right. Thanks. Yep. Who else? I think we've got a couple mods in the chat. So someone took care of it. Thank you. All right. I'm just going to check in, see what y'all are saying. Other than that, it's a bot. Some things are objective just on their own outside of our observation. Sure. We are not perfect observers. Okay, continuing on. One set of answers in opposition to the application of the scientific method to the understanding of human beings boils down to this. God did not intend us to understand humans. It is evil to attempt to do so. I'll just say, I have never heard this argument. This might be a 1950s thing. This is the same point of view that was expressed in criticism of Galileo for studying the physical universe. New knowledge is always threatening to vested interests. We are less than sophisticated if we express surprise, much less horror, at opposition from persons and groups to the pursuit of knowledge. It was only 3 decades ago that a teacher this is very old. right? So this must have been, it was only 3 decades ago that a teacher was tried in court in this country for teaching his students the theory of evolution. The trial occurred after Einstein had published his now famous formula. It occurred in the lifetime of Luther Burbank, don't know who that is. We do not have to lean on Galileo or other medieval examples for this point. Last year, a lady came to Northwestern University and withdrew her 20-year-old son from one of my classes because the textbook mentioned the theory of evolution. I guess, as depressing as it is, so even though this is dated 2004, obviously this is a much older republication, but, attacks on CRT, attacks on knowledge, attacks on progress, it's been going on, continues to go on, and I guess maybe a hope we can take is that they keep losing. Despite their best efforts, we continue to go forward. All right, back to the article. If you believe in a God who created humans slightly higher than beasts and slightly lower than angels, and who looks upon the study of such a being, of the behavior of their fellows as a moral outrage, then I have no answers for you other than those to be found in the historical development of humans' thinking on this topic. I can disapprove of the scientific method I can disapprove by the scientific method neither the existence of such a God nor his disapproval of social science. Yeah, yes, Empress is saying this is unfortunately relatable. The attacks on people who try to produce knowledge that challenges conventional wisdoms, especially ones that uphold power structures, are always a threat. Okay, continuing. The other unusual objection to the existence of social science, which I characterized earlier as revealing ignorance, is that there cannot be social sciences. Sciences of social life are impossible, say the proponents of this view, because human nature is unpredictable. You cannot generalize on how humans will behave. This would be a very damaging argument, except for one thing: it is not true. The social behavior of human beings is patterned, and hence can be described in general principles. All societies are structured. All societies are stratified. All societies implement a division of labor on the basis of ages and sex and race and disability. Sorry, again, I'm going to update this for the 21st century. These are general sociological principles. 2. Anthropology offers similar principles of culture. All societies have value systems consisting of ideal patterns which are taught to each member of the society, and normative patterns, which are actual behavior. All cultures, so normative meaning what is right and wrong, understandings of or views on what is right and wrong. So what you wear in your clothing, how long your hair can be, these kinds of things can be normative because they're related to status in your culture or whatever. Where did I leave off? Right. All cultures exhibit some degree of variance between the real and ideal patterns of behavior. Psychological research indicates that all societies have persons who deviate from the norms. All societies contain individuals with varying capacities for learning. Individuals in all societies feel hostility, and if one hostility focus is removed, they will find another. The above are general descriptive principles. More important for our case that social sciences already exist is the ability in various fields to make predictive statements. If this, then that. When one culture is exposed to a new technology, let me start that one again. When one culture is exposed to another, new technology will be diffused faster than new value patterns. The principle of cultural lag. And this is true, right? You introduce technology, that gets adapted, but the implications of that on the culture take a while to settle in. As a social group loses function, it will lose stability. A brief description of the modern urban industrial family. People will migrate a distance which is inversely proportional to the number and magnitude of intervening economic opportunities. Finally, and probably most convincingly to the layman, it is possible to predict specific behaviors in a certain society at a given time. The population of the U.S. in 1950 was predicated on a percentage increase basis to the decimal of accuracy of the 1920s. I don't know what this is. We'll just keep going. We can give paper and pencil questionnaires to convicts and predict recidivism and success among parole applicants, especially nowadays if you understand CRT. Burgess, with his associates, have designed questionnaires on the basis of which they can predict the probable marital success of engaged couples. Production rates in industrial environments can be altered by the implementation in personnel policies. I am not saying that hold on one second. I am saying that there not only can be social sciences, there are social sciences. I have still not addressed the question, how scientific are the social sciences? The answer, of course, is that some are more scientific than others. The social sciences have come a long way in the past 3 decades. It's so sweet. The social sciences are very scientific today. I can tell you from having to study and learn new computer programs and new, updated methods of statistical analysis to handle things like big data and geospatial locating, those sorts of things. Among those which have the longest way to go are those schools of political science whose primary concern is scolding, attempting to reform the world from a point of view of private set of values. Oh, look at this, he's whining. I don't really know what he's talking. Maybe in the 1950s he's mad about desegregation. I can't really say, but generally, yes. To say that the social sciences do reveal things like racial resentment, and oftentimes that makes people feel uncomfortable. But making you feel uncomfortable about the truth doesn't change the fact that it's true. In some areas of economics, psychology, and sociology, there have been marked progress in scientific rigor, predictive power, largely because of a willingness to employ quantitative techniques. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think. Behaviorism into psychology was probably taking in the 1950s, was getting increasingly. We're moving away from case studies of institutionalism and more into data collection as social surveys, and the statistical methods around the social surveys are getting more precise. So I guess this is also a little bit of an anachronism, this point of view, because it was written almost 100 years ago. General principles are right, but okay, we've really moved on from this, so some of the critiques are no longer valid. Let's brand string theory, yes, because it's just a theory, right? Okay, but as for those areas of the social sciences which are not yet sufficiently scientific, what are the deterrents holding them back? The first deterrent to progress in social science is ethnocentrism. Members of any society tend to believe that their way of thinking, their way of doing things, is not only the best, but also the right way. Navajos refer to themselves as people and to all outsiders as others. Jewish people have classified others as Gentiles. In ancient Greece, there were Greeks and barbarians. Yeah, get America first types, right? The belief that one's own way of thinking is the proper way still influences the social sciences. Again, this is pretty anachronistic because of the way in which the empirical drive in the social sciences has really pushed data and data analysis. Last week I heard a political scientist in a curriculum discussion saying that his job was to guide graduate students into the execution of research projects which would prove that democracy is the best form of government. Yeah, I guess this again, I would also disagree with that. I guess you'd have to prove that democracy is the best form of government, assumes that you can establish a best form of government, which that is fine. It's grounded in an opinion. However, that is like a normative statement. It's a value statement. Right. So I think a lot of this, we say, is in the quants less the case today. I don't think there is a problem having a normative position in a Western democracy. So I'm gonna separate myself from the author here and say that normative analysis has a role in the social sciences because norms, values deal with quality of life, right? And so I don't think you can say democracy, I can prove democracy is the best form of government, because that's not a meaningful statement. What I could say that is meaningful is that I will be able to demonstrate empirically that those people who live in a democracy have better health outcomes, have better education outcomes, have more opportunity for social class advancement, have more opportunity to, enjoy freedoms. And if you value those things, such as access to education, ability to get a higher paid job, those kinds of things, then democracy is the best path to a form of government to get those outcomes. And I think that is a valid way. If you're honest and upfront about what your norms are and why you think they are best, just be clear about it. So I'm gonna skip down because I wanted to get done in a half hour, and I'm so not done. What are we on? Page 6. Okay, we're blowing through. We're almost got 2 pages left. A second deterrent to scientific research is the confusion of engineering with science. Scientists assume that any knowledge, whether or not it is practical, is worthwhile. There is a crucial difference between the scientist who discovers knowledge and the engineer who applies it. The physicist discovers the law of mass and volume. The engineer applies them in constructing a bridge. The social worker does not test a hypothesis in order to evaluate a scientific theory. He applies the knowledge presented to him or her or them by sociologists and psychologists. In other words, he, she, they are social engineers. No invidious comparison between scientists and those who apply scientific knowledge is intended. I am simply saying that the pressures upon scientists to engage only in useful research can do much to deter the development of science. And I would agree with that in terms of there's this shift in useful degrees. So somehow education is only of value in some quarters if it produces a worker that can make money, right? And that is a value judgment. That's not a objective one. And so the idea that we should only do science that is profitable, or we should only engage in scientific research that, benefits us in some useful way that is measured by usually a capitalist metric, is introducing norms and values into the scientific practice. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Nice to see you on a Sunday. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so looks like we're going to get some weird things that are third deterrent are social scientists themselves with their so here's I'm just going to skip down to this because I think this is pretty dated. If I wanted to, I think this is like instances of dogma. So I'm just going to move down there because we have peer review and a lot of the stuff seems pretty specific to 1950s qualitative, more institutional approaches to the analysis of in political science and other social sciences. A fourth impairment to social science I would call conceptual inefficiency, the employment of concepts with vague or untestable reference. Again, this is something we've overcome. A necessary requisite for the emergence of an exact science is a clear and ambiguous terminology. I've already cited the hazards of equating the implementation of principles or engineering with the discovery of principles. Psychoanalysis, for example, is still largely a technique, an engineering practice, a case of the implementation of principles which have not always been precisely formulated. A classical example of entrapment by inefficient concepts can be found in its literature. This misleading image conjured up by such concepts tend inevitably to dominate the beliefs. So I would agree with this. So the Jungian stuff that Jordan Peterson does, Freudian things, it's not that some of the ideas aren't useful. They're just not scientific. I can't measure an id. I can't quantify an ego in a way that I can measure everybody's ego according to one metric. It doesn't mean the ideas aren't useful. They're just not scientific. And we should understand, have a clear division in our mind between things that are useful and things that are useful and scientific. So the writer goes on, I do not mean to suggest that solid empirical research has not been accomplished within the framework of Freudian psychology. The Freudian concepts can be given empirical reference, that they can be operationally defined, adequately illustrated by such scientific work as that of Winch and his associates. This and other endeavors of like caliber are pioneering work. So again, this is being written at a time when the empiricist, the positivist movement, the behavioral-focused movement in the social sciences in the 1950s was emerging and would come to dominate the discipline in the next few decades. There is a real danger, however, in lumping with this work non-scientific pursuits, which have been incited by Freudian writings, as the public is wont to do. As long as engineering activities such as psychoanalytic therapy are confused with science, they will serve to impede the progress of science, which I would agree with. I will mention briefly only two more determinants to the development of social science. The first is a tendency to substitute exactitude for meaningfulness. In other words, to follow the safe course by studying what is easy to study, even if this means ignoring problems which are more pressing for furthering of theory because they are harder to solve. Psychology is probably the worst offender here. though many sociologists are making a notable attempt to hold on to second place. Again, this is very much of its time. We know we're located in segregationist America, 1950s, a bunch of white guys talking amongst themselves. However, with that stipulation, this is a reflection of the critique that led to a more positivist influence in the role of behaviorism in the social sciences. I'm just going to skip this. Okay, this tendency is summed up in a comment contrasting the exactitude of American social science with the European tendency to grapple, however inexpertly, with basic theoretical problems. It has been said that the European social scientist doesn't know what he or she or they is talking about, which is a great deal, while the American knows precisely what he, she, they are talking about, which isn't much. So we can be very precise about a little thing, right? Or try to get our hands around. For instance, let's take a concept that influences people's experience of everyday life and yet is very difficult to quantify. Racism, right? Racism is we understand the general principle of the concept of racism when the word is said. However, its application, how it is enacted, right? Who is capable of being racist in a power structure versus personal interactions. This is when it gets a bit messy and you need to start operationalizing your terms. And by operationalizing your terms, I mean providing a definition of a concept that is the middle ground between observation and theory and your concept's definition. You need to define what it is in the world you're looking for before you go looking for it. And that step is operationalization. The final deterrent, the author goes on, to scientific endeavor in the area of human interaction is an unpleasant one to have to mention. It is fear. The view is growing that one is wise to avoid controversial issues. A redundant term, since if a topic is not controversial, then it is not an issue. Issues cannot be omitted from science except through falsity, distortion, and concealment. If an issue is presented as though it were not one, that is as if there were only one side to it, that is not science. It is indoctrination. I would definitely point to this in terms of the attempts to remove CRT from the classroom, right? Going on, the intimidation of foundation research programs attempted this year by the Reese Committee, the intimidation of research scientists at Harvard attempted by Senator Joseph McCarthy. Yes, very much of the 1950s, right? We're really into the Red Scare here. And this push-pull of people in power wanting to substantiate and protect unjustified hierarchies from criticism versus people who are pointing out that they're unfair. These do not bode well for the development of a vigorous social science research program in the United States. If we really want social science, we must, as citizens, demand the fairest possible exploration of all sides of a social problem. Such exploration is not fostered by vocal pressure groups who want only their side presented and who are able to threaten with possible loss of livelihood and reputation anyone who suggests there is another side. If we really want social science in this country, we have to ensure social scientists the freedom that their work demands. So there's a lot of interest. It's very much of it's a bit of a time capsule. 1954, 1949. I'm looking at some of the document, the dates here, 49, 47. However, I think the general observations still stand and were a useful exercise to go through. So yeah, I hope they found this a little bit interesting. You just kind of put me on in the background. Let me read. I'm going to go ahead and give a couple minutes to see if people have things to say. Y'all been chatting a little bit away, so I know that there's anti-intellectualism, always a problem, yes. And people who believe in freedom, but only in their way of doing freedom, not freedom for others to decide how they want to live. All right. Can you guys, I'm going to give you a poll for the last few minutes, and I'm going to ask you if you, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to give you a poll, a survey question here. You enjoy this format for the Sunday show? Oh no, what happened? I'll have to try it again. Did I run out of words? Come on. Oh, stupid not working YouTube. I was going to give you guys a survey poll to see if you enjoyed this, but... All right, so yeah, here's the question since I didn't get it to work out. Would you like to, did you enjoy this format? Would you like a few more, would you enjoy seeing me on a Sunday read out an article? Because while you're answering that, I will put this up. I heard about this a long time ago, but kind of didn't follow up on it. If you just subscribe to JSTOR as a free, like with your Google account or some other login, you get access to 100 free articles, I think a year. And so we could certainly, if you want to send me something or I will find something on a Sunday, I think this is how I want to move ahead going forward. And suddenly very interested in what social scientists were publishing during the McCarthy era. Yes. Okay, all right. If my voice is all right, you don't mind me pausing to clear my throat because I'm just woke up and had warm coffee. I'm still getting my voice warmed up for the day. Then yeah, I think this is what we're going to look at doing moving forward into 2022, which is either reading an article and discussing it, critiquing it, and doing some sort of engagement. Yay, Bruce is happy. Hey, A to Decay. I'm glad you're here, Lucky Wanderer. Also great to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Yes. Sorry, I'm just laughing at Sumpra saying, popped up as you were saying, do you enjoy this format? And reflexively hit yes and the question was blank because I messed it up. Well, then cool. If you enjoyed that, then come back next Sunday and I will bring you some more geeky social science stuff. Other things I'm thinking about incorporating into the show are my old lecture notes, which are publicly available on academia.edu. We can look at various elements of quantitative and qualitative social science. Also thought about bringing in the course books that I taught from, DeVos and Bryman, which are both introductions to social science methods, maybe dipping into those and looking at specific topics, elements, subsections. Mark, very much enjoyed my voice is great. Fun. Wow, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And HK, that was you. Thank you for stopping by. I'm glad. I know that I've got a face for radio, so it's nice to put my voice to good use, especially if you put me on the background and just fall asleep. All right, I am going to get on with my day because I am going to keep this set up. Get my chair now with the velvet. I might play around a little bit with my lighting. And I'm going to record some trailer trash or treasure because I want to make content that isn't heavy. I want to make content that is fun and light and gives people a little mental break. So, okay, people enjoyed it. Thank you, Easy7. I appreciate your compliment too. All right, you've won me over. I'll bring you more nerdy social science every week coming up for 2022. I'm looking forward to it. If you keep coming by, I'll keep reading out articles. How about that? All right. Yeah, I want to get on with my day so I can record some trailer trash or treasures. I've taken a break because I was not well, but I'm feeling so much better and with so much more energy. It's amazing what vitamins and vegetables and fruit eaten in correct proportions do for your daily energy intake. And I will see you guys next week. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay happy, be well, wherever it is, whenever it is you are. Hey, look, you get to watch me end the stream. All right, until next time, I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. Keep being awesome, and I'll see you again pretty soon.